A question I've oftentimes been asked is, what's the best console for any monster taming fan to invest in? Some of us have access to multiple consoles, but for those who are trying to figure out which of the consoles to buy, or for those just wondering which console is the most beneficial when it comes to monster taming, this video is for you. Now let me just say that this video is not going to talk about which console is the best overall, but rather which console contains the widest array of monster taming games currently on it and up and coming. We will also be touching on the Steam Deck, though I'm not officially counting it for this video just because there's still a lot we don't know with regards to which games will be playable, how the Steam Deck runs, etc. I will though touch on it and sort of talk about the potential for the Steam Deck. However, this video is mostly going to be between PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. Anyways, with all of that out of the way, let's jump right in. Okay, so there's a few important factors to consider when it comes to which consoles are the best for monster taming specifically. These factors include, of course, performance, which games are present on each platform, and one that a lot of people might not think about, but I still think is relevant, is how long it takes for each console to receive their patches after they're updated. So firstly, in terms of performance, it's no surprise that the Nintendo Switch is heavily outclassed by both the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. It's also outclassed by the PS4 and Xbox One base models, so I mean, it shouldn't really be surprising that it's not winning this category. But I will say, most monster taming games are not very demanding on the console, but there are some titles that may have to consider optimization when tackling the Switch version. For the most part, any 2D game should be fine. However, 3D games like Kindred Fates, Temtem, Laxadays, Chain Monsters, or Sky Climbers could end up suffering frame rate loss due to poor performance on the Nintendo Switch due to its limitations. This is completely speculative though, as none of these games are currently out on the Switch just yet. Another big issue with the Switch is its online component, and I'm not even talking about the price or anything like that. The Switch's online service is notorious for being problematic, and games with online multiplayer components could end up suffering as a result of that. With Temtem and Chain Monsters specifically being MMOs and Kindred Fates having real-time PvP, I could see issues with the Switch versions of these games. Now, part of optimizing the games and making sure that they're working proficiently on consoles is also up to the developers, but it's no secret that the Nintendo Switch has limitations that a lot of developers have to consider, especially when making games that will appear on all consoles, and we've seen in multiple cases Switch versions of games not running quite the same as their other counterparts. Now, with regards to the PlayStation and Xbox consoles, they're pretty comparable, so I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty there. So you can consider either or the superior in terms of performance. Okay, onto the library of games that each console holds. Now, this is probably the most important of the 3 points, so you really want to pay attention here. Now, this is where the Switch really shines, because at least with the monster taming games that I cover on a weekly basis, as well as the games that have come out this generation, the Switch by far has the most exclusives. This is actually so much so that I find it difficult to actually find games that are exclusively coming out to Xbox or PlayStation. One PlayStation exclusive that comes to mind is Costume Kingdom and whatever future project that Stratton Studios is working on, but this is also available for Steam, which we will touch on in a sec. With the Switch, on the other hand, you have a lot of both major players and indies in the genre, such as Coromon, Shin Megami Tensei 5, Monster Hunter Stories 2, the entire Pokemon franchise, Kindred Fates, Monster Tribe, Final Stardust, and more that are either exclusively releasing on the Switch or launching on both the Switch and non-console platforms respectively, like Steam or mobile. So despite the fact that the Nintendo Switch does have less processing power than the PlayStation and Xbox consoles, it does clearly have the superior library when it specifically comes to monster taming games. Now that said, I do want to touch on the Steam Deck and just Steam in general, but like I stated earlier, we don't know for sure if the Steam Deck will just be able to play every monster taming game or if there's something that's going to be needed from those devs, but it does have the potential to be a worthy adversary when it comes to library, depending on what you're particularly looking for in a monster taming console. Also, before people try to argue that the Steam Deck isn't a console, it's literally a portable computer that plays Steam games, much like the Nintendo Switch is literally a portable computer that plays Nintendo games. Just because it has more customization than other consoles and gives you more options doesn't make it not a console, or at the very least, unworthy of conversation. Anyway, the Steam library is definitely the largest when it comes to monster taming games due to the ease in which one can upload their game to Steam. You just need a small amount of cache and something to upload and bang, it's good to go. This does have its ups and downs, since on one end you get to have access to early access titles, alpha builds, and a lot of small budget titles that would never make it or have no plans on making it onto a traditional console, but there's also the fact that having a low bar of entry means that you could also run into a lot of games that have either a lower standard of quality or early access titles that have been abandoned. This is not a major issue within the monster taming genre, but it is something to keep in mind for the future. There are a lot of games that I feel like fans of the monster taming genre would be missing out on if they did not possess a Steam Deck or a PC, including, but certainly not limited to, Mython Island, Adore, Untamed Isles, Patch Quest, Drugimon, and a whole lot more. Not to mention the fact that games like Temtem that are coming to console still require you to wait for the full game to come out, so there's no early access support, meaning that you might have to wait years after people have already had the game in order to get your hands on it yourself. That said, if you can only have one or the other, it really does come down to preference. Do you want to have access to games like Shin Megami Tensei, Pokemon, and Rune Factory? Or do you want to have access to the Steam exclusive games? But yeah, since we're not really counting the Steam Deck for this video, I'd say in terms of having access to games, the Nintendo Switch is the superior of the three major platforms. Now finally, last but not least, we're going to touch on how long it takes each console to get updates. This may seem like a weird point to talk about, but I do think it's noteworthy. So first of all, generally speaking, the Xbox and PlayStation get updates about a week after they're uploaded, and the Nintendo Switch takes about 14 days, aka 2 weeks. This means that if there is some type of game-breaking bug in one of the games that you are playing, you're going to have to wait 14 days after a developer has put in a fix for that bug if you're playing on Nintendo Switch. A week is still pretty long for the other consoles, but definitely not as bad. Now, this of course is referring to indie developers, which make up the vast majority of monster taming games. Bigger budget titles will be able to just get their hot fixes in as they please, I presume. And just to touch on the Steam Deck again, updates should be the quickest on this platform, just because most of these monster taming games utilize Steam as their main platform. Anyway, so if you already couldn't tell by what I've presented in this video, despite some of the Nintendo Switch's shortcomings with regards to its processing power, how long it takes to receive updates, etc., it's actually the best monster taming console by a long shot. The Xbox consoles and PlayStation consoles just don't have the exclusives, even in the indie scene, that the Nintendo Switch has. Most monster taming games do not require large processing capabilities, and on top of this, if you are someone who's in college or commutes, you can also play all these monster taming games on the go. There's also a lot of games that exclusively come out on the Nintendo Switch, like the big budget titles I mentioned earlier. So with all that said, I do hope this video was useful or insightful to anybody wondering about this question. I do see it oftentimes asked in the comments of various videos. When it comes to general gaming, I love my PlayStation over all else, but unfortunately with this niche, it's definitely lacking those exclusives that I'd like it to have. That said, let me know in the comments which system you play monster taming games on. Any games you're looking forward to specifically, let me know down below, and if you did enjoy this video, definitely make sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on the monster taming genre. You can also follow me on Twitter and check out my Discord as well. All links are in the description. Special thanks to our patrons, especially Jim Hamilton and StealCase, our mythical backers. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.